When you think about history, you usually assume the most basic biographical facts are locked in. Things like a person's birthday.
Right, yeah. You'd think that's pretty non-negotiable.
Exactly. But consider this piece of Hollywood revisionist history. Warner Brothers actually altered a man's birthday. They moved it from Christmas Day, 1899, to January 23rd, 1900.
And, I mean, it wasn't just some clerical error either.
No, not at all.
The studio's PR department made this highly calculated decision. They actually believed the American public simply could not accept that a man born on Christmas Day could be as, ruthless and villainous as this actor appeared on screen.
Which is wild.
Yeah, Christmas birthday, in their minds, would completely ruin his tough guy credibility.
It really shows you how aggressively the studio system manufactured their stars back then. I mean, they wanted to control the narrative down to the literal day you were born.
They absolutely did.
And that control, and really the ultimate rebellion against it, is exactly what we are unpacking today for this Pillow Pod deep dive. We're looking at the ultimate American cultural icon. The guy who basically defined that trench coat wearing, cigarette smoking, cynical, tough guy image. We're talking about Humphrey Bogart.
Right. And the goal today is to kind of peel back that fedora and look at the actual mechanisms of his life. Because you know the image, right? Everyone knows the image.
Oh, definitely. The silhouette alone is famous.
But the real Bogart was this massive contradiction. I mean, we're looking at a man who hustled chess games for dimes in New York parks, a fiercely loyal protector of his friends, a relentless rebel who took on a monopolistic studio system.
And honestly, someone whose real life was genuinely more dramatic than any noir film he ever starred in.
Oh, without a doubt.
So just to start, the contrast between the grit he projected on screen and his actual origins is, well, it's completely jarring.
It really is.
If you picture a street-smart, Depression-era gangster, you do not picture Humphrey Bogart's childhood. He was born into a very wealthy Manhattan family. His father was a cardiopulmonary surgeon.
A very prestigious job.
Right. And his mother, Maud, she was a highly successful commercial illustrator. In fact, she actually used a drawing of baby Humphrey in a national advertising campaign for Mellon's baby food.
Which is just so funny to think about. The quintessential cinematic tough guy started his life as a literal poster baby.
Literally.
And the economics of that household are super fascinating, too.
Yeah.
Because his mother was earning over $50,000 a year at her peak.
Oh.
Yeah, which was a staggering fortune at the turn of the century. It was actually more than double what his surgeon father was bringing in.
That's incredible for that era.
It is. But despite all that money, it was an incredibly cold household.
Yeah, he wasn't even allowed to call her mom. He had to call her Maud.
Maud.
Yeah. He once described his upbringing as straightforward, but entirely unsentimental. Like, a kiss in their house was treated like this rare, almost awkward event.
And that lack of emotional warmth, you can see how it really laid the groundwork for those stoic, internalized characters he would later play.
Definitely.
But as a kid, he was just miserable. I mean, he was teased relentlessly. His mother dressed him in these fussy, pristine Little Lord Fauntleroy outfits, complete with distinct curls. And you add the name Humphrey to the mix, and, well, you can imagine how he fared on the playground.
Not great, I'm assuming. So his parents, carrying all these high society expectations, they pack him off to the elite Phillips Academy in Massachusetts.
Right. The big plan is for him to go to Yale.
Exactly. But instead, he gets expelled. And the rumors surrounding his exit are legendary at this point.
Oh, they are all over the place.
Yeah, some stories claim he threw the headmaster into a campus pond. Other accounts point to, like, a combination of smoking, drinking, and just atrocious grades. But whatever the final straw was, he completely rejected that path they laid out for him.
Leaving him totally adrift, really. So without any viable career options, he joined the Navy in 1918.
Right in the thick of World War I.
Exactly. And this period is where the mythology surrounding his physical appearance really kicks in. Specifically, the trademark scar on his lip and his slight lisp.
Because the studio spin machine saw a gold mine there, right?
Oh, absolutely. They needed a heroic backstory for him. So they started planting these stories in the press that the scar came from shrapnel when his ship was shelled.
But wait, if you look at the naval records, his ship was never even involved in a shelling, was it?
No, not at all. So they even floated another slightly more dramatic narrative. The story went that he was transporting a handcuffed prisoner in Boston. The prisoner asks for a cigarette, and when Bogart looks down for a match, the guy smashes him across the mouth with the iron handcuffs.
I mean, come on. That sounds suspiciously like a scene drafted by a Warner Brothers screenwriter.
Right. It's perfectly cinematic. But friends of his, including the actor David Niven, they painted a much more grounded picture.
What did they say happened?
Well, Bogart privately admitted the scar was likely just from a childhood accident that a doctor poorly stitched up. Or, given his affinity for nightlife in the 1920s, it might have been the result of a speakeasy bar brawl.
Which honestly makes way more sense. The studio desperately wants a war hero, and the reality is probably just a guy who caught a stray punch in a speakeasy.
Exactly. So after the Navy, he drifts into theater. But he's not playing the heavy. He's actually working on Broadway, playing these trivial, effeminate, juvenile roles that he absolutely despised.
He called them his white pants Willie roles, right?
Yes. And legend has it, he was the first actor to ever walk on stage and deliver the incredibly cliché line, "Tennis, anyone."
Which is so completely at odds with his legacy. It's like taking a raspy heavy metal vocalist and forcing them to sing children's nursery rhymes.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
You can hear that the raw vocal talent is there, and the stage presence is undeniably there, but the genre is just painfully mismatched.
Yeah, the instrument just didn't fit the material at all. But that all begins to shift in the 1930s. He met Spencer Tracy while shooting a film in 1930, and Tracy is actually the one who gave him the nickname Boogie.
Oh, really? I didn't know Spencer Tracy came up with that.
Yeah. But the massive turning point, the moment the heavy metal singer finally gets the right song, that happens with The Petrified Forest in 1936.
Okay, yes. He lands the role of Duke Manty on Broadway, who is this cold-blooded, escaped killer, and it's a massive critical success.
Huge success.
So Warner Brothers buys the film rights, but because of the way Hollywood operated then, they had zero interest in casting Bogart for the movie.
Right. They wanted a proven box office draw. They wanted Edward G. Robinson.
Because Robinson was already their marquee gangster, but the star of the play, Leslie Howard, he held the production rights, and Howard stepped in with a move that is basically legendary in Hollywood lore now.
It's an incredible story.
He sends a cable to the studio head from Scotland that simply read, "Insist Bogart play Manty, no Bogart, no deal."
Just a completely uncompromising power play by a friend.
And it worked. It forced the studio's hand. Bogart played the role, and the authenticity of his menace completely floored the critics. But let me push back on the studio's logic here for a second.
Sure, go for it.
Because imagine you are a studio executive. You have a clear emerging star who just delivered a massive hit. Why would you purposely squander that talent by throwing him into cheap B-movie filler for years instead of just elevating him to the A-list?
Well, to understand that, you really have to look at the mechanics of the 1930s studio system. Warner Brothers wasn't operating like some boutique talent agency trying to nurture artists.
Right.
They were an industrial assembly line. They had their top-tier leading men,
Right.
like James Cagney and Edward G. Robinson, who got the Permian scripts and the big budgets. Bogart was viewed as a utility player.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, so they locked him into this low-paying, highly restrictive contract, and his sole purpose was to churn out volume to fill movie theaters every single week.
So they basically just squeezed him for every cent. They boxed him into playing the disposable heavy over and over again.
Exactly. He was the antagonist meant to make Cagney look good, or he was the secondary thug in Robinson's crew. It was a brutal grind. Bogart actually later calculated that in his first 34 pictures for Warner Brothers, he was shot in 12 of them.
Wow.
Electrocuted or hanged in 8, and played a jailbird in 9.
I mean, if you are forced to play the same doomed henchman 36 times, you are going to build up some serious resentment.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is where his reputation as an againster forms. He hated phoniness, but more than that, he hated arbitrary authority. If the studio wasn't going to respect him, he was going to rebel in his own subtle ways.
And he found some pretty creative ways to do it.
Yeah, like the wardrobe department was notoriously stingy, so he just started wearing his own beautifully tailored suits in the films just to look better than the budget allowed.
Which drove them crazy.
And then in High Sierra, he bypassed the studio animal actors entirely and brought his own dog, Zero, to play his character's dog.
He was constantly signaling that he wouldn't just be a cog in their machine. And as we move into the 1940s, his personal intellect really begins to bleed into his characters. We transition from that one-note thug to the complex, cynical romantic.
Right.
High Sierra gives him that narrative depth. And then the Maltese Falcon in 1941, directed by his close friend John Huston, that really solidifies the persona. the wounded, stoical loner with a strict personal code of honor.
And then we hit 1942 in Casablanca. He plays Rick Blaine, the expatriate nightclub owner. This is the role that cemented him as a global romantic lead.
Without a doubt.
But the behind-the-scenes reality of that movie is almost comical. Off camera, he and Ingrid Bergman had zero rapport. Like, they barely spoke between takes.
Bergman actually later admitted, she said, "I kissed him, but I never knew him."
That's so sad, but also hilarious given the movie's legacy.
And the physical logistics on set were just as awkward. Bergman was noticeably taller than Bogart.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So to preserve the illusion of the, dominant leading man, the crew had to place these 3-inch wooden blocks on the floor for Bogart to stand on during their close-up scenes.
That is the ultimate Hollywood illusion right there. But there is a detail about Casablanca that genuinely surprised me as we were looking into this.
The chess connection.
Yes, the chess connection. Bogart was a near master-level chess player. Long before he was famous, he used to hustle games for dimes and quarters in New York parks and arcades just to pay for his meals.
He was incredibly good at it.
And it was actually Bogart who insisted that Rick Blaine be shown analyzing a chessboard in the movie.
It was a brilliant character choice, honestly, because it communicated intelligence and strategy without him having to say a single line of dialogue.
Yeah.
And his obsession with the game was intense. During World War II, while he's shooting these massive blockbusters, he was playing correspondence chess by mail with American GIs stationed overseas.
He was mailing chess moves back and forth to the South Pacific, and the FBI actually intercepted his mail.
Yeah, this is my favorite part of the story.
If they saw this algebraic chess notation like E4, C5, knight to F3, and they flagged it, they legitimately thought one of Hollywood's biggest stars was transmitting an encrypted spy code.
It's so funny, but it really highlights how deeply analytical he was.
And think about that analytical mindset for a second, because you have to wonder, was his love of chess more than just a hobby? If you look at how he navigated the highly political, treacherous world of the studio system, it feels like a direct metaphor, like he was always thinking 3 moves ahead.
That is the perfect framework for his career, honestly.
Yeah.
Chess is entirely about strategy, right? Anticipating your opponent's attacks, understanding the value of your pieces on the board. Bogart was playing a long game against Jack Warner and the studio executives. He knew he started out as a pawn, but he systematically maneuvered himself across the board. He knew exactly when to sacrifice a short-term battle, when to push back on a script, and how to read the executives trying to control him until he finally became the king.
But while his professional strategy was masterful, his personal life during this period was absolute chaos.
A total mess.
We have to talk about his 3rd marriage to the actress Mayo Method. The press actually dubbed them the battling Bogarts.
Because it was a highly toxic, destructive relationship. She was convinced he was being unfaithful, and eventually he was. But her jealousy was violently explosive.
I mean, she literally set their house on fire.
Yes. And one instance, she actually stabbed him with a knife.
Which is terrifying. They both drank heavily, they constantly needled each other, and they seemed to almost thrive on the adrenaline of intense confrontation.
He was very dark.
But then comes the major pivot of his life. It's 1944, he's 44 years old, trapped in this violently unhappy marriage, and he walks onto the set of To Have and Have Not. That's where he meets his 19-year-old co-star, Lauren Bacall. And he nicknames her baby.
And the chemistry between them was immediate and just undeniable. But it created a highly volatile situation on set. The director, Howard Hawks, who was married, by the way, had essentially discovered Bacall.
Right.
He positioned himself as her mentor and protector, and he had developed this intense, possessive infatuation with her.
So when he realizes she's falling for Bogart, Hawks becomes furious.
Completely furious, he tried to intimidate her. He told Bacall that Bogart was just playing her and didn't really care about her. Then he escalated to actually threatening her livelihood.
What did he do?
He told her if she kept seeing Bogart, he would sell her contract to a Poverty Row studio.
Let's clarify what that means for a second, because it's a vicious threat. Being sent to Poverty Row meant being banished to the lowest tier of the film industry. She would be forced to make these dirt-cheap, 5-day shoot B-movies.
It would effectively destroy her rising career before it even started.
It's like a dark Pygmalion or Frankenstein scenario. The creator builds this perfect star and becomes enraged when his creation exhibits free will and chooses someone else.
That's exactly what it was. Bogart, however, absolutely refused to let Hawks bully her. He stepped in, calmed Bacall down, and directly confronted Hawks.
Good for him.
Yeah. The tension got so bad that Jack Warner had to personally intervene and settle the dispute just so they could finish filming the movie.
And they weather the storm. Bogart divorces Mayo Method, and he and Bacall marry in 1945. And to celebrate, they buy a 55-foot sailing yacht called the Santana.
And that boat reveals so much about his internal life. The ocean was his ultimate sanctuary from the artificiality of Hollywood. He spent around 30 weekends a year out on the water.
That's a lot of time on a boat.
He really believed an actor desperately needed something to stabilize their personality. You know, a place to nail down who they actually were, separated from whatever character they were currently pretending to be.
He loved that boat so much, even though it consistently made Bacall seasick.
She hated it.
But she put up with it. And it's in the late 1940s, feeling this new sense of stability, that Bogart makes his most aggressive move against the studio system. He forms his own production company, Santana Productions.
Which sent shockwaves through the industry. Jack Warner was livid.
Because it threatened their whole business model, right?
Exactly. It threatened the core economic model of the studios. If a major star could secure funding, produce their own films, and hire their own crews, the factory system would just collapse. Bogart wasn't just asking for better roles anymore. He was laying the groundwork for total artistic independence.
And taking that massive risk resulted in some of his most legendary work. In 1951, he signs on to do The African Queen, directed by John Huston and starring Katharine Hepburn, and they decide to actually shoot on location in the Belgian Congo.
Yeah, they weren't faking the jungle on a Hollywood soundstage. They were dealing with agonizing conditions. Extreme heat, profound isolation, sinking boats, wild hippos.
Army ants. Massive infestations of army ants.
Right.
And almost the entire cast and crew contracted severe dysentery from the local water. Everyone was violently ill. Everyone, that is, except Bogart and director John Huston.
Which is amazing. And Bogart's explanation for their survival is a piece of classic Hollywood lore.
What was his excuse?
He claimed the two of them survived solely on a diet of baked beans, canned asparagus, and Scotch whiskey. He famously joked, "Whenever a fly bit Houston or me, it dropped dead."
They just marinated their insides in scotch to kill the bacteria. I mean, it's an incredible story, and the grueling shoot paid off. He won his first and only Academy Award for Best Actor for that exact performance.
Well deserved. But, behind all that tough talk, the whiskey and the cynicism, Bogart possessed a profound empathy for the people he worked with, particularly actors who were struggling.
The contrast there is amazing. Take the production of The Left Hand of God in 1955. He was co-starring with Gene Tierney. At the time, she was battling severe, undiagnosed mental illness. She was forgetting her lines, behaving erratically, and holding up production.
And most A-list stars of that era would have demanded she be replaced, or they would have exploded at the director.
Without a second thought.
But Bogart's sister had actually suffered from severe depression, so he recognized the signs. He didn't complain. Instead, he was incredibly patient.
Yeah, he quietly fed Tierney her lines before the cameras rolled. He coached her through her scenes, and he gently urged her to seek professional medical help.
It is the ultimate contradiction. Think about it. The man globally famous for playing cold, cynical, I-stick-my-neck-out-for-nobody loners was, in reality, one of the most fiercely loyal and protective men in the industry.
And that loyalty extended to his social circle as well, because he was actually the inadvertent founder of the Rat Pack.
That's right.
It's 1955. Bogart, Bacall, Frank Sinatra, Judy Garland, David Niven, and a few others are on a days-long bender in Las Vegas. After a particularly brutal night, Bacall surveys the absolute wreckage of these immensely famous people passed out in the living room, and she just says, "You look like a goddamn Rat Pack."
And they adopted the name immediately. Sinatra was designated the pack president, Bacall was the den mother, and Bogart was hilariously assigned the title of Director of Public Relations.
Which is perfect.
Yeah, when a gossip columnist asked Bacall what the group's actual purpose was, she replied, "To drink a lot of bourbon and stay up late."
Unfortunately, that era of independence and celebration didn't last very long. By late 1955, his lifelong habits of heavy smoking and drinking finally caught up with him. He developed esophageal cancer.
And true to his stoic nature, he totally refused to complain. He didn't discuss his health publicly. He didn't leverage it for sympathy. He delayed seeing a doctor until early 1956, and by the time they operated, the cancer was highly advanced.
Yeah, despite surgery and chemotherapy, it metastasized. Yet he maintained his sharp wit even as his body failed. When he became too weak to use the stairs in his home, and his weight plummeted to just 80 pounds, he still refused to be treated delicately.
He told his friends, "Put me in the dumbwaiter and I'll ride down to the first floor in style."
He held on to his dignity right to the very end. He passed away in January 1957. His funeral was a gathering of Hollywood's elite, but it was remarkably unpretentious.
John Huston delivered the eulogy. He highlighted that while Bogart never took himself too seriously, he held the actual craft of acting in the highest possible regard.
And the final detail of his burial tells you everything you need to know about who he really was. His ashes were interred with a small gold whistle. It was a charm from a bracelet he'd given Lauren Bacall years earlier before they were even married. And the inscription read, "If you want anything, just whistle."
It's a quiet callback to their very first film together, To Have and Have Not, where her character famously tells him, "You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow."
It is the perfect closing scene to their real-life script.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, there is a reflection from Bacall that puts Bogart's entire life into perspective. She noted that as time goes by, most people compromise. We all believe less and less. But Bogart, she said, was someone who believed in something.
He possessed an uncompromising internal code. Whether it was demanding fair treatment from a studio head, protecting a vulnerable co-star, or refusing to play the PR game, he absolutely refused to be anything but exactly who he was.
Which really leaves you with something to ponder. In our current era of hyper-curated, manufactured authenticity, where every public move is focus grouped and everyone is terrified of damaging their brand, Bogart's enduring cool stems from the exact opposite approach.
Totally.
He didn't care if the studio executives liked his tailored suits. He didn't care if a powerful director was intimidated by him. And he certainly didn't care about making the Hollywood machine comfortable. So ask yourself, is true cultural immortality only achieved when you finally stop trying to please everyone else and simply decide to play your own game?